It was a warm afternoon when everything I believed about my marriage shattered. My name is Michelle Smith, and I'm 35 years old. For most of my adult life, I've been bound to a wheelchair, but I've built a stable and independent life despite the challenges. I live in a comfortable home adapted for my needs, a place where I thought I would build a happy life with my husband, Ken. Ken, 5 years older than me, appeared to be the man I had always hoped for. We met at a casual mixer arranged by mutual friends. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just another social event where I'd probably be ignored or politely excused because of my disability. But Ken was different. He seemed genuinely curious about me, about my life in a wheelchair. While others hesitated to ask uncomfortable questions, he wasn't afraid to dive in. He asked practical things. How do you manage daily tasks? What's it like living on your own? Do you need help with certain things? While some might have found his inquiries intrusive, I found them refreshing. No one had ever shown such open interest in understanding my world. He wasn't just pretending to care, he wanted to know everything. Over time, our dates became more frequent, and eventually we started a relationship. Ken felt like my chance at real happiness, someone who saw me for who I was and didn't let my disability define me. I was excited about the future, and when he proposed after 6 months, I didn't hesitate to say yes. At the time, it felt like the happiest moment of my life, but happiness can be deceiving. The first few months of our marriage felt like a dream. Ken moved into my home, a place I had carefully chosen because it suited my needs. The house had been modified to accommodate my wheelchair, wide doorways, ramps, and handrails that made navigating my daily life easier. At first, Ken seemed excited about the space. He praised its size, its modern appliances, and how convenient it was. I believed we were building a life together, that this was the beginning of a long, loving marriage. It didn't take long for cracks to appear. Small things at first, Ken leaving messes behind in the bathroom or ignoring my requests for help with chores. "I'm tired," he would say whenever I asked him to assist me with something simple, like picking up a shampoo bottle he left on the floor after his bath. I could manage on my own, but it took time and effort that he never seemed to appreciate. As time went on, Ken's indifference grew. He started coming home late, making excuses about work that didn't seem to add up. He had never held a steady job, bouncing from one part-time gig to another. Yet he always seemed to have enough time to go out with friends. I was left at home, alone, managing everything. From the rent to the groceries, to taking care of the house. And the worst part? Ken didn't care. One night, I asked him for help with something simple, just to put away the dishes after dinner. He snapped at me, his tone sharp. "Why don't you just hire someone if you need help all the time?" His words stung. When we got married, I had let go of my part-time helper, trusting that Ken would be there for me. But now, he couldn't be bothered to lift a finger. I could feel the weight of the situation settling on my shoulders. Something wasn't right. The man I had married, the man who had once seemed so thoughtful, was revealing a different side. I wondered if he had ever truly loved me, or if he had seen me as someone who could make his life easier, a woman with a house, a steady income, and no one else to rely on but him. The final blow came one evening after a long day of work. I had a home office where I spent most of my time, working remotely for a company that had been gracious enough to accommodate my needs. My legs might not work, but my mind was sharp, and I was proud of the career I had built despite my disability. As I sat down to dinner, exhausted, Ken dropped a bombshell. "My parents are going to move in with us," he said casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I stared at him, speechless. "Move in with us? In this house? Without even asking me?" The questions swirled in my mind, but I could barely find the words to respond. "But why?" I finally managed to say. "They have their own home. Why would they need to move in here?" Ken shrugged. "It's better for them to be close by. They're getting older, and this house is bigger, more convenient." More convenient for who? I thought bitterly. Certainly not for me. Living with 2 elderly people would turn my world upside down. I work from home, I need space, I need quiet. How could I manage with 2 more people in the house, people who would likely need just as much assistance as I did, if not more? And Ken, of course, would be gone most of the time, leaving me to handle everything. But this is my home, I protested, my voice shaking. I need this space. For myself. For my work. Ken's face darkened. You're being selfish, he snapped. You only think about yourself. This is the best solution for everyone. Everyone but me. I knew then that something was terribly wrong. Ken had never cared about me. Not really. I was just a convenience. A woman with a house that suited his needs. A steady income that allowed him to live comfortably without working too hard. And now, he wanted to bring his parents into the mix, without even considering how it would affect me. My heart sank. As if that wasn't enough, Ken's next words made my blood run cold. Maybe you should think about moving into a facility, he said, his tone casual, as if he were suggesting I switch brands of coffee. It would be easier for you, right? They can take care of you there. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from beneath me. A facility? He wanted me to leave my own home, the one I had spent years adapting to my needs, and go live in some cold, impersonal place where strangers would take care of me? Was that what he thought of me? That I was just a burden he could offload onto someone else? Are you serious? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Ken didn't even look up from his phone. It's just an idea. You'd be more comfortable, and we'd have more space. The realization hit me like a freight train. Ken didn't want me anymore. He wanted the house, the stability I provided, but he didn't want me in it. I had become an inconvenience. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, anger, and fear. How had things come to this? How had I ended up married to a man who didn't care about me at all? I had been so blinded by the idea of love, so desperate for companionship, that I hadn't seen the truth. Ken had never loved me. He had used me. By the next morning I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay in this marriage, not with a man who wanted me gone from my own home. I needed to take control of my life before it was too late. I spent the day making phone calls, putting my affairs in order, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. I knew Ken would never expect it, but I was done being his pawn. When Ken came home that evening, I was ready. My bags were packed, and a folder with divorce papers sat on the kitchen table. Ken walked in, his usual air of nonchalance hanging around him like a cloak. He glanced at the packed bags, confusion crossing his face. "What's all this?" he asked, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "You're finally moving into a facility?" I looked him straight in the eye. "No, I'm leaving you." The smirk vanished, replaced by shock. "What are you talking about?" I handed him the divorce papers. "I'm done, Ken. I'm not gonna let you use me anymore." For a moment, he just stood there, staring at the papers in his hands as if he couldn't comprehend what was happening. Then he laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "You can't be serious. You can't live without me. Who's going to take care of you? Who else would want to be with you?" His words stung, but I didn't flinch. I had anticipated this reaction, and I was ready. "I can take care of myself, Ken. I've been doing it for years. You're the one who can't survive without me." Ken's face twisted with anger. He threw the papers on the table. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you can just walk out and leave me with nothing?" I remained calm, even as my heart pounded in my chest. "This is my house, Ken. I pay the rent, I pay the bills, and I'll take everything with me when I go. You'll be the one left with nothing." He lunged toward me, his face red with rage. "You can't do this. You can't just leave. You need me." I backed away, keeping my voice steady. "No, Ken. You're the one who needs me, and that's why you wanted to get rid of me. You thought I'd go quietly, that I'd be too weak to stand up for myself. But you were wrong." The next few days were a blur of action. I contacted a real estate agent, arranged for the furniture and appliances to be picked up, and finalized my plans to move. Ken, still in shock, barely spoke to me. He probably thought I would change my mind, that I would come crawling back, begging for his forgiveness. But I didn't. I was done with him, and I wasn't going to look back. On the day of the move, Ken stood in the doorway as the movers came and went, watching as his comfortable life was dismantled piece by piece. I could see the panic in his eyes as he realized what was happening, that I was really leaving, that everything he had depended on was slipping away from him. By the time the last box was loaded into the truck, the house was empty, save for a few cardboard boxes that held Ken's belongings. I turned to him, divorce papers in hand, and said, "Sign these, Ken. This is the end." Ken stared at me, his face pale. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "We can work things out." I shook my head. "No, Ken. You only wanted to work things out when you realized you'd lose everything, but it's too late. I'm done." Reluctantly, Ken signed the papers. As I walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. For the first time in years, I was free. I was no longer tied to a man who saw me as a burden, as a means to an end. I was my own person again, and I was determined to live my life on my own terms. A few days later, I moved into a new facility, a place I had secretly been preparing for years. It wasn't the cold, sterile environment Ken had imagined. It was a luxury facility, with spacious rooms, professional caregivers, and all the amenities I could ever need. I had planned for this, investing wisely in real estate and stocks, making sure I would be financially secure no matter what happened. Ken had no idea that I was wealthier than he could have ever imagined. When he came to visit, thinking I'd be miserable in some run-down home, his jaw dropped when he saw where I was living. It was everything he had wanted, a beautiful, comfortable place, far nicer than the house he had tried to take from me. He had the nerve to ask if he could move in with me. "Are you serious?" I asked, incredulous. "We're divorced, Ken. You made your choice, now live with it." Ken, ever the opportunist, tried to sweet-talk his way back into my life, but I wasn't having any of it. "You can't keep using people, Ken," I told him. "I'm done being your safety net." With that, I turned away from him, closing the door on that chapter of my life forever. I knew I had made the right choice. I had escaped a toxic marriage, reclaimed my independence, and found peace in my new home. And for the first time in years, I was truly happy.